is basically work that has already been paid by the Recton Park. You know, with the exception of the last three items. And that's because they're specifically related to work for the fire district that's being done on Creekside Park property. If that makes sense.
Hold that thought, so I'll come back to it, but he has a question.
Yeah, just think out loud. Okay, the JPA, the Joint Powers Agreement, established the Creekside Wastewater Authority. Okay, now, in the pecking order of things, where does an authority stand in relationship to a district? Is there a pecking order, or is that NA?
Ken could probably answer that best.
Well, it's not easily answerable, but I think the answer is in this particular circumstance that pecking order is that the JPA has authority over the wastewater system that supersedes that even for the districts, because the two districts have in essence given over their authority to the JPA.
Okay, then imagine, if you will, a wiring diagram with like the horns of a deer. On one point here, we have fire. On the other point, we have Creekside. And then down below, connected by two lines, is CWA?
Well, I think the reality of it is that CWA is at the top of that when it comes to the wastewater treatment system.
The language of the JPA states that the CWA is now the managing entity above two districts?
Yeah.
Not just joining them for the purpose of overseeing septic concerns.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, if I created the impression that's way overly broad. We're only talking about the septic system as it exists at the fire station, the pipe that goes down to Creekside, and the wastewater treatment system at Creekside. That entire component is now under the supervision of the JPA as opposed to the two districts.
Now, it's under the supervision of the CWA, which was formed by the JPA.
Well, right. Okay.
Yeah.
CWA.
And the CWA then, I think, would be necessarily below the two districts in a wiring diagram, a three-part wiring diagram. What do you think, Dan?
I think it's an appropriate analogy. Basically, we're talking about a component. And in terms of operating that component, and I'm not sure about in terms of building the component, we still have to have that conversation, but in terms of operating the component, this group has all power over that. And the two boards look to this Joint Powers Authority.
The component being the septic
system with the pipe and whatever has to happen. I mean, it sort of begins at the toilet and ends at,
For example, in the fire district has a strong opinion about how something should be done with regard to this wastewater disposal system. They would not have overriding authority to say, this is what we, the fire district, wants. They would instruct the two members of this board, that members of the fire district board, to pursue this. And if there was a difference between the two districts, Dan and I would be charged with persuading Rich the correctness of their position, which of course will always be correct anyway.
One more question. It's all for clarification, just to help my understanding. It is my understanding that Recton Park owns the Creekside Park. Fire owns the fire assets. And the septic component is something that will be controlled in its entirety, and that, and only that, is what will be controlled in its entirety by the CWA. Have I just said something that is correct?
No, yeah, that's right. Because
That sounds right to me.
I could finish this. Fire district is still going to run the fire district. Recton Park is still going to run Recton Park. But all this board is running just the one component, which is from the tank to the toilet. That's all this thing is concerned with, that one piece.
Okay, then it follows that the statement I thought I heard from this lady, that the CWA somehow owns Creekside is not correct. Reckitt Park owns Creekside.
Right. But this entity will own the septic system because fire district is contributing money, and so the two districts will be jointly owning the component.
Right. And will you be drawing up a mission statement that defines that for the public?
As far as I know, that's defined in the
Or
JPA.
It's kind of part of the JPA, but these are things that we'll work out as we go along as to what we want to do in terms of government documentation. For example, bylaws is something that we're going to have to discuss. And for those, how we configure those documents will be things we'll have to discuss and make a decision.
Right.
One of the other things that we were thinking might be useful for this organization would be, say on the next agenda, to have a presentation about the septic system, how it works, what the components are, what's involved with it. You know, just go through the whole process, the componentry, how it functions, the exceptions, the waivers, all that stuff, so people understand the entirety of it, rather than just, you know, the wastewater component of it.
Yes, that's something.
Would you or Brian be willing to
Sure.
do that presentation?
Yeah.
So I have a field trip.
Yeah, well, we hopefully will have a field trip.
Can I ask a simple question?
Yeah.
Okay. All these bills have been paid, right?
14 through 16 have not.
Okay, that's $10,000. So
Right.
250's
50.
been paid.
Yes.
So what still has to be paid is whatever has to be done at the firehouse plus the pipe down the hook in, right?
Plus the 10,000 on site.
Right, okay. So my question is, the Reckitt Park, in other words, the fire district, they're going to front that piece and then take it off of this to even out the shares?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at it simplistically, because this is ultimately how we've gotten to this point,
Yeah.
is that the Reckitt Park Facilities Board or committee said, we're going to have this, because if we don't have this, then we don't have a park. So, you know, the Reckitt Park has been spending funding that was not originally earmarked to be to the point where we could have the conversation with the fire district. So there are expenses that we need to pay now that are not related to the septic system, but were already fronted by the Reckitt Park to pay for the septic system ahead of time.
I think what I'm saying though is, I talked to Carl about the pipe from the school to the firehouse, and he said roughly $25,000. Okay. Plus there's always engineering permits, we're looking at probably $40,000.
Right.
So if the fire district fronts the $40,000 and does it, then half of that, which Reckitt Park, see if I'm right or not, would come off of this figure here.
I actually think that that amount would actually be added to the overall cost.
But what I'm saying is, if we pay the whole thing, we're not going to look for someone to pay us back, and just take it off of what we're owed on the rest of it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. This is the thing that we've talked a little bit about, which I think is important to put into context for this overall conceptualization of what the JPA has the ability to do. Which is, if you think about it, today, the Reckitt Park has spent $250,000 on this system, from soup to nuts. So the strongest position that the fire district could be in would be to seek funds, not of their own funds, but of grant funding, using that $250,000 as a match. Because that would be the most productive leveraging way to use the money that's already been spent. If the Reckitt Park has already spent that money and you can leverage it to get $250,000 more through the USDA or through, you know, the Rural Communities Coalition or any other organization, then the fire district doesn't have to have that money out of pocket. So, I mean, I think that the biggest shit that we're talking about is taking that $250,000 and getting more grant funding for the district, the fire district. So that it's not something that you're taking off and adding to, but do it properly, and you're not taking it out of your general fund as a fire district.
So I think, you know, there's going to be more costs than just the pipeline and the engineering for the fire department component. There's going to be the actual features on site, the tanks, the pumps, and that sort of thing.
The permitting,
Permitting,
the
right.
engineering.
So that is an unknown in terms of what's been presented so far. That's what Adobe's going to have to come up with, is maybe estimates on that. And that was kind of the question. And you asked the question I had, is how much of this has already been spent? And so you say everything's spent except 14, 15, 16, or is committed for expenditure? Or where do you stand?
Everything has been spent up to 13 to date.
So
And
you paid, say, the contractor $138,000, but there's still money owing, or what?
yeah, there is funding that is owed right now.
So this isn't the whole picture, this is just the stuff.
This is to date. And so I think it would be extremely beneficial to have Adobe kind of conceptualize the other components, so we at least have an estimate of, you know, I mean, that's Carl's number, and Carl Van Dyke's number was very competitive in comparison to
Yeah.
Northwest General Engineering, because Northwest was 24,000 and Carl was 8. So you know you're getting a much more competitive number from Carl, but I think it would be useful to have Adobe say, here's the components that we see coming in the kind of transition of improving the septic system for the fire district now in anticipation of the future. And what are those costs, and then how do we get grant funding from other organizations? Because that, you know, it's money on the table that should be taken advantage of. To not do that would be unfortunate.
When you said that there's, that what we're seeing here is what's been spent to date, and you said that there are additional commitments that are not here, that are costs that are not reflected that you're anticipating?
Well, we're talking...
Other than 14, 15, 16?
Yeah, we're talking about the components that will be at the fire district.
I see.
And the piping connecting the two, and the pumps, and, you know, various things. The monitoring system, the annual permit fees, you know, we've been in conversation with a company that has been highly recommended to actually do the monitoring and set that up so that you can see, you know, on the internet where the effluent is and how much is where, and, you know, so they basically are the monitors of the system, and they have a certain annual fee. It's not very expensive, but it is something that would be included in the annual kind of operating cost for this system that's held by the JPA.
So I think it's important to differentiate between the capital costs and the operating costs.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that goes to Steve's question, which is how we're going to pay for all this stuff. Is the fire district now going to just start buying the other components to get up to the edge of the Creekside property? And probably that is. And then at what point is there a transfer of funds from the fire district to Rec and Park to reimburse for the part of the system
Right. That's already been spent.
that's already been spent? And what I'm hearing is that we should be looking for grant funds before we do that, right?
No, not from my point of view.
Okay, that's all right.
From my point of view, the thing that would be most useful to be looking for grant funds are the things that have not been purchased, not are in contract, not are in bid.
I see.
So that,
So it's separating that.
right, because these are all hard costs, capital improvements, you know. The ability to have the system that we have to date has been put in place. So I think that having Adobe say, and it's probably going to be Adobe and Huffman together, because Rob has his own opinions about things, that they come up with a solution that will work for the fire district now. that also have the capacity to work for our district in the future. So there's some flexibility that's built in, and then that would be, I can see going for grant funding. And the rec and park and the fire district would go together, because at that point, the fire district is putting $130,000 into it, so they share it equally. And they go as two entities to get more funding to complete the system in its current configuration. If that makes sense.
Yep. So if the decision was made to just cut a check for $125,000 by the fire district today, then from then on, the remainder of the capital costs would be taken by the JPA. Then, I'm now
That's
just,
where I'm at, too.
yeah, I mean, so do we now take over, get contributions from the two entities to be able to complete the additional work? So in other words, it would be half of what you've already spent, and now all additional work is being done through the JPA?
I think that could make sense, but again, my position would be that rather than the fire district spending money out of its own coffers, that it's the opportunity to go after grant funding.
You say grant for the 125 rather than cutting the check. That's one of the
Well,
No,
no.
that's not what I'm hearing you say.
No, from everything else, let's say this is, a certain percentage of the overall, let's say it's 75%. So there's 25% more that the fire district needs to be complete. I'm just using that as a percentage, it may not be accurate. So with the 75% being complete and both entities sharing 50% of it, then we go as two entities to a granting
Go for grant,
organization
yeah.
and say, we're both completely committed to this, we need more funding from you. And that will allow us the other 25%. So both agencies are not out of additional money, but you're getting money together.
On that line though, I still don't know if the question was answered. If we did get more grant funding, would that money go into this, to the JPA? Or would it be, where would that money go, the grant funding, if both entities went after it?
I think it could go into the JPA, that might make sense. Because the fire district, by putting 130,000 in, they're whole, the rec and park is whole. So the funding that you'd be looking for together would go to the JPA to
Be able
administer.
to do the rest of this stuff.
Or would it be the JPA that's what else?
I think it would be.
Yeah, the JPA would go out to the funding.
Yeah, right.
So the JPA would receive the funds, would make sense to me.
It would be a grant application by a JPA.
Right. And the JPA is the two entities that have already invested the $260,000 into this and needs X amount to complete it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I got it.
Can I ask a question about the numbers?
Sure.
Okay. In the columns, overall cost and total, disregard 14, 15, and 16, below the line items, they're differing amounts. Now, the total, I'm going to assume is what the total cost is projected to be for the septic system, but then the overall cost, since overall cost has not been defined yet, does that mean that's overrun? If it's greater than the total?
Now, those are costs that the rec and park has already determined that they feel is appropriate to be part of the rest of the park. So, for example, you'll see that in the CEQA on 5 and 6, that adds up to $26,500. But the overall cost of CEQA was $48,000. So because of all the components that were part of the CEQA process, and we'd be glad to also do, a presentation on the CEQA if this board was interested in drilling down into those details. It's kind of a question. It's an opportunity.
In the case of, let's say, number 9, civil coordination, I guess it is.
Grading, yeah.
Grading. you've got an overall cost of 17,000. You have a total of 4,250. But the nature of the contractor or entity that carried out whatever number 9 is, are you saying that no matter the skills of that entity, I guess which is Doble, Thompson Associates,
Yeah.
the rest of the money that Park and Rec, or Rec and Park has allowed for that line item to
Yeah.
go to other features of the park?
Yes. So, for example, that's a good example, Ken, that item number 9. A lot of that actually has to do with drainage components that are on the site that have to do with bioswales and creating retention so that stormwater doesn't go directly into Dutchville Creek. So it's not specifically related to the septic system, even though it's specifically related to water quality control. But in conversations with the facilities committee, we didn't feel it was appropriate to necessarily put 100% of the engineering for grading and drainage, because we're also having to grade and drain, the parking lot and the driveway and the bus turnaround and other components on the site, the trail as well.
So the total refers to very specifically the septic costs.
Yes, it's trying to be,
And there are surpluses.
right, it's trying to be more focused on the septic, the implications of the septic system for the overall expenditures.
Were the percentages, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, just what she's trying to summarize is what the septic system costs versus the rest of
The project,
the
Are the percentages that were worked out in the facilities committee? Or is it both fire district and the Rec and Park on board with the percentages and being appropriate?
Well, the part of the evaluation as been part of the city.
No, these are based on conversations having to do with looking at the overall project and saying, well, you could say the septic system is X amount of square feet, versus other components on the site, and then, picking an average percentage to determine what seemed to be fair.
Well, it sounds like there's a couple things that need to happen, as I've been thinking about this. First of all, we need to prepare a budget. That's sort of a fundamental part of any organization. But secondly, it sounds like we need to afford both Parks and Rec and the Fire District some time to review this and make sure there's an agreement on it before we take any action to accept it. Does that sound like a process or way to
So I couldn't quite hear you, Rich, so you're suggesting that this goes back to the Rec and Park Board, and it goes back to the Fire District Board, and
however they want to handle it, if it's through their board or whatever, I think we need concurrence that this is an appropriate time.
Yeah, at the present time, this allocation is for by right park exclusively.
okay, so because this has been looked at.
Yeah, we've looked at it, so go ahead. So what you were saying is you guys want to look at it. I agree. You should. Should visualize it, should. I like it.
Okay, so I think then tonight, we're not really taking any action, we're just sort of taking under submittal, and then we can use this as a basis for part of the budgeting process. And probably next agenda, we need to agendize exactly how we're going to arrive at the budget. So I don't see a need for action tonight. Does anybody else see a need?
Well, I think we need to be clear on questions that we're sending back to our respective boards.
Okay.
What answers do individual board members need to come back with for the next meeting? And part of it is discussing this and what our appropriate action plan as far as moving money is, how we can do that. At our next meeting, we should be, as suggested, putting together a budget. I guess from what I'm now understanding, we need both an operating budget and a capital budget to complete the project, and some way to, however you go about getting grant money, I have no clue, but somebody does, and start working on finding grants for the additional capital costs. And I think that presentation on the system and how that works and what we can expect, just in terms of not necessarily dollars, but functions
Right.
that have to be done, year on year. And then we can start to build an operating budget out of that.
Mhm. Well, I think actually in the agreement, the guesstimate was that it was $2,500 from each organization to cover the monitoring and permitting costs.
Yeah, that's what we wrote as the reserve.
So we need to confirm that that is appropriate.
Yeah, and we need to have a reserve and an operating budget.
Right.
Okay. So what are the questions? Are we going back to the board?
It sounded like you answered your own question, but
I think as soon as, I mean, we've been through this, as our facility committee and all, and the money, I think as soon as the fire board agrees with it, the money should change hands to cover this first $260,000 cost.
Yeah, so the question of the fire board is, do we approve the transfer of
Right.
funds
That's
to
where
the
we're at
Racket
now.
Park,
For the
yeah,
first-
to get to
for
the...
phase one, basically.
Yeah,
Phase one
to get to where we're even.
Right.
Yeah.
so then does that take care of that item? Is everybody happy with it? Okay. So the next item under new business is 5D, which is to review the joint powers agreement language. And I had searched for this before I came here, and I couldn't find it on my computer, so I hope somebody has an extra.
Yeah,
Well-
I would say that, by the way, I do have an extra, I think I'm not altogether sure how this item came up, but I would suggest that we might want to put this over and review what it is exactly that we want to review, because number one, the joint powers agreement could only be changed by mutual agreement of the two separate boards, Racket Park Board and Full Board. On the other hand, if we're talking about what it is that is logical for this CWA, that this Joint Powers Authority to accomplish under the terms of that, it would be something that we can decide by drafting the bylaws, because the Joint Powers Agreement delegates to this board the function of drafting bylaws. And that would also give an opportunity to clarify a mission statement that I suppose could be part of that bylaws or something along those lines, so it's pretty clear exactly how we see what it is we're going to do with this organization on in the future. That's my thoughts with regard to this.
So you're suggesting to hold over the action item, but with the idea of adopting bylaws and a mission statement? Is that what you're saying?
This is actually not an action.
It's not an action item, it's just a
Discussion, yeah.
It covers all the action items.
So, just for your benefit and for the benefit of the people who are not at last meeting, the language that we're talking about had to do with how members of this board are selected. There was some question about that. Specifically, it was in item 6A, if you have who makes up the board of directors. It's a 5-member board, and selected by both boards. That's what it's specifically. But the real question was, can anybody be a member of this committee, or do the board members contributed by each of the board have to be board members of that board, as it is at the moment, which 2 members of the Racket Park Board, 2 members of the Fire Board. Could Fire have chosen somebody else besides one of our own members to be a member of this group. And that was my understanding was that it would always be 2 fire board, 2 rec and park board, and a 5th member. But the language is not that specific. And so that's why, and I think, Peter, you brought that up, somewhere along the line, it could be anybody, and it's not clear. And so clarifying the intent of that is what this is about. So, I think it's worth a discussion, even if we don't come to any conclusions. My opinion is that the makeup as it is means that 4 members of this board will always have been elected by somebody. Whereas if we could choose anybody, then it isn't necessarily an elected person. But I'm certainly open to arguments that say otherwise.
Well, but this was intentionally made, the doesn't have a ironclad requirement that the 4 people that are appointed by the 2 separate boards to each be board members themselves. However, it makes a lot of sense, and certainly, I think it certainly makes sense of our board, and I suspect it's the sense of the rec and park board, that they have board members to serve on this board during this critical first period when all the decisions are being made as to how money's going to be spent for construction and how the situation is configured for time immemorial. But if you go into the distant future when all this is put together and everything's operating, it's not going to be much for this board to do. It's going to be there's going to have to be some sort of ongoing maintenance analysis and things of that nature. And whether or not that if one board is going to appoint someone other than a board member to achieve that, that's lawful. But we will not change it. We have to be changed by the 2 boards to do that.
So your suggestion earlier was that we can cover this in the bylaws. We can create bylaws that make this language more specific, but could be changed by this board itself, rather than having to go back to the districts to change the agreement between us.
That would be one way of accomplishing setting forth the terms as defined by this board as it exists.
I think that makes the most sense. I mean, the vagueness, it depends on how you read it, who's reading it. To me, it was very clear that it was 2 members of the rec and park board and 2 members of the fire district board. It only makes sense, because how would the best interest of the fire board and the park and rec board be achieved without it being members of those boards? And then, of course, having the 5th person be an appointee that's not related to the boards. So I think it was just a question of clarity, and I agree with Ken completely that we could probably resolve all this by drafting some bylaws at that point, which we need to do anyway, because we have to set boundaries for meetings and stuff. So.
I'm going to make a comment. Open my mouth, and I agree with Kathy. I read it, and I don't understand a lot of legalese stuff. It's hard for me sometimes, but it was very clear to me that, and it says shall be, 2 members of the board from the fire district and 2 members of the board from the rec and park. It just didn't seem vague.
Let's read it, because I think there's the shall is in there, but it says the authority shall be governed by a 5-member board of directors. The board of directors is the governing and administrative body of the authority, shall formulate and set policy, and shall exercise the powers set forth in this agreement to accomplish its purpose. Each party shall appoint 2 members of the board. That's referencing in this section the board of directors. And the appointed members shall select a 5th director not affiliated with either district. So essentially the shall is saying that they have to appoint 2 members. of this board. It doesn't say they shall be members of the other two boards. So, yeah, there is some ambiguity in there the way I read that.
I agree with Gene. My understanding was your understanding, and it wasn't.
Because even in there somewhere it says something
Yeah.
about board and then directors.
Right.
And earlier in the document, I believe it defines what board, directors, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't look through it, but it just seemed really clear.
Well, I think the Allison's paragraph, as Rich points out, it refers, it says shall appoint two members to the board, it's referring to this board, not the current boards. So there can, you know, under that construction of this sentence, which I think is logical, it would be possible for one or both of the boards to appoint people to this board that were not members of their board. Now, if it's a sense of this board that it be clear that forevermore the 4 members that are appointed by the boards be members of that board, it would be easy enough to draft the language and take it to the 2 boards to amend the joint powers agreement if we want to make that recommendation.
It seemed like the ambiguity may not be a huge issue in terms of, I think, the actual meetings of the board, once everything's in and operating, will be minimal. And, you know, probably in that case, board members would probably just say, we'll have board members sitting on there because it doesn't make sense to try to bring somebody up to speed for a very infrequent meeting. On the other hand, if something did arise where there's a substantial problem with the system for one reason or another that might involve, you know, expenditure of large amounts of money or something like that, then it would be beneficial to have board members directly involved in the authority. So, you know, in my own opinion, I think we could live with it. You know. Yeah. Never had lots of
So.
Well, I understood it to be the way that's happened, the way it was taking place. I didn't see a lot of ambiguity. And I agree with Rich in the sense that it's certainly not something burning like hot. It's just something that we dealt with maybe 6 months or so. It need be.
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah, we essentially set a precedent and we was up.
Okay, is there any other comments, questions? Okay. So I think it sounds like the sentiment of the board is to leave it the way it stands, right? So that item being done, sounds like we'll move on to item 6, reports and information.
Not sure we have at this point. This would be the point when the treasurer's report would happen.
Since we don't have a treasurer or budget, it's a little...
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have a treasurer, but he hasn't done anything yet. Correspondence, do we have any correspondence?
That would be a question about where one corresponds to this organization. That's why it makes sense.
There's certainly been a lot of emails flying around,
But that's not correspondence to this group.
and that was my impression too, so it wasn't directed specifically. Yes.
Are you going to have a website?
Raise a question,
No.
should we get a separate post office box?
Yeah. Well,
CWA?
how much mail are we going to get?
Well, we need a post office box with a checking account, I'm sure, anyway. So it makes sense that we would have to have a PO box. But it makes sense.
Who's going to check it?
Well, just one of the people on the board or, we're all volunteers, so maybe the secretary or the minute taker does it, but, it doesn't make sense to have any additional expense or cost related to this at all. So I'm confident, and I will, approach this in a budget, in a board report at the next Rec and Park meeting, and possibly we use, the Rec and Park phone number for questions, and then they can be deferred to the right person, or, someone here can do it, or there could be an email. All of the Rec and Park directors have Rec and Park emails, so trying to get a hold of sending a message to Steve or myself is very easy to do on the website, or, we're very attainable.
And
So.
we're about to reach that level.
Oh, great. And then maybe we just.
That'll go into effect within the next month, where we will have.
Another email account?
Well, I certainly see the need for people to be able to reach us.
And, but it's, I don't know, post office box, the Fire Services Foundation.
We could just do something.
We have, the Fire Services Foundation has its own post office box under this box 536. We can use that.
Is it possible to have an email address like CWA at Rec and Park?
I will absolutely check into that with our webmaster. I don't think it would be a problem at all. And it would go to all five of us.
I guess
or
you
just one
get
person?
bounced, get forwarded to them.
Let me check it out.
So, and I guess that would resolve the issue of how to correspond, would be via email, sort of saying, or I guess if somebody didn't have access to email, you can certainly write to the Park and Rec and Fire Department and ask them to be forwarded on to us.
I just want us to be mindful of the Brown Act and our emailing and how we communicate amongst each other.
So take care of correspondence, and we'll move along. For the benefit of you who came in late, we took the item 8 and the action items and actually moved them under the specific items that we're talking about. So it's actually not a separate agenda item. We did that at the beginning. So we're actually up to item 9, which is our next meeting. And also, as part of this, I'd like to set some tentative agenda items for the next meeting. So, how long do you want to go till the next meeting? A month or so, or?
It makes sense to me that this group meets before the district boards have a meeting. So it'll be sometime during the first week of each month.
Knowing when the fire district or the park meets.
Yeah. Second Monday, second Tuesday.
Okay.
So anytime during the first week would be.
Is there anything wrong with the first Monday?
Seems to work.
First Monday?
Of each month?
For the time being, and adjust it as necessary. So the first Monday would be what?
December 2nd.
I do have a question regarding the next meeting, however, and the time of it. Does that mean, that 30 days difference with resolving the half and half, we're not going to be doing anything financial until we meet again in 30 days? There won't be any exchange in the fire district?
Well, that's why I was asking if you wanted to wait a month before another meeting, or we should have it.
I'm not sure that matters to this group.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
The fire district is agreeing to buy in, and I don't know if it's on our agenda for our next meeting. But if it is,
Should be on.
should be on.
We should be doing that.
We could make that decision and just transfer the money to Rec and Park, and it doesn't have anything to do with this group.
So then,
We'll put that on the forward.
Yeah.
so we're agreed on December 2nd?
December
Yeah,
2nd.
First Monday, in December.
Okay.
Same time.
We'll have to check and make sure the community center's available.
Yes.
We had talked, and do you want to try to look at the system next month, or do you want to just, that seems a little premature, actually, unless it's going to get buried there, we won't see it.
Well, we could go through the drawings and the components.
Okay. So then we could probably keep it at 6 o'clock.
We could do a presentation on the system itself.
Is that enough time for December 2nd?
Yeah.
So then we'll set it for December 2nd at 6 o'clock, and I assume we can use this building.
Find out.
Well, yeah, if not, well, it'll be okay. I just don't know if there's anything going on. We have to check with the director of events.
In December, it's awfully cold, so in the parking lot.
It's also cold to sit here as well, I just want to say.
Okay,
Here,
so,
here.
some of the things that I think we need to talk about, one is budget formulation process. And then we'd also talked about bylaws and a mission statement. Do you want to try to tackle that next meeting?
Yeah, let's put it out there.
We also, I heard some questions regarding how the permit process was going to occur. Do we want to set that for discussion and work out
The what process?
the permit
Process
process?
to finish the firehouse, right? We should get started on that.
And the overview of the septic or the sewage disposal system. Or the on-site wastewater treatment
Yes,
system.
more accurately.
This is definitely not disposal. This is the champagne of Monterey.
It's treatment.
And I heard some questions on grants and how we might do those, or how we want to agendize that. So then, anybody else have anything they want to add now? And I think we can certainly add anything else up to the time of the agenda formulation, which I guess I should do, and do it probably a week before the meeting or so.
If you send it to me, Rich, I can, or I'll send you the template, but
Okay.
or you can send me the details and I can format it for you either way, but we need it 72 hours in advance so it can be posted on the Rec and Park website, and then hopefully I heard a rumor that the fire district is going to be.
Yeah, we're going to be on the running within the next couple of weeks.
You can let me know if you want help with that, or you just want to do it, send it to me.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I'll use your template.
And so will the
Okay.
agenda also be posted on the bulletin board?
They already have, they are. We took care of it.
Yeah, we posted here at the firehouse and here at this book.
Oh, and there's one last item. I kind of deliberately jumped over the question of nominating a secretary because it wasn't on the agenda, but it sounds like we need one.
Our recording secretary.
Yeah.
So we're talking about someone to take minutes.
Yeah.
An outside volunteer, you mean?
No.
I don't mind being the interim secretary for the time being. I'll happily do that.
Okay, well, then we can make your nomination official next week.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and any other items to add? Any public comment?
Just wanted to report a question. Redevelopment funds were used for both phase one of Creekside Park. And I noticed on this spreadsheet of phase one alpha came up. I guess I don't really care what that means, but I'll keep it very short. Is redevelopment or CDC better stated? Is CDC now clear Creekside Park other than auditing the use of the money, which is their last remaining fiduciary duty?
There's $713 left.
Oh.
And phase 1A is the open space district.
Okay. When will that
been explained in terms of the overall budget. And so Phase 1A includes enhancements to the site that were not included in Phase 1. So it's the community farm and orchard, it's all the bioretention, it's the full trail, it's interpretive signage. So it was an ability to enhance what was approved by the CDC.
So that money will also be coming from the CDC?
No.
No.
It's the open space district.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, then if there's no further comment, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:30 or so.